In today's episode, we're exploring stories of 5 people who got eaten alive by huge grizzly bears. From an aspiring model who mistook a grizzly bear for a photo opportunity, to a retired teacher whose peaceful camping trip became a nightmare. Let's begin with the first story, where one Instagram model's desire for social media fame became her final post. It was July 11th, 2017, and the pristine wilderness of Glacier National Park stretched endlessly across the Montana landscape. The morning sun cast golden rays through towering pine trees while crystal-clear streams wound their way through valleys carved by ancient glaciers. The backcountry trail that snaked along Bear Creek was deserted except for one lone hiker, 22-year-old Sophia Martinez, an aspiring Instagram model from Los Angeles who had driven over 1,200 miles to capture content that would set her apart from her urban competitors. Sophia had built a modest following of 8,400 followers by documenting her outdoor lifestyle adventures, but she knew she needed something extraordinary to break through to the next level. Despite having minimal wilderness experience, Sophia had convinced herself that her natural instincts and smartphone research were sufficient preparation for solo backcountry hiking. She had arrived in Montana 3 days earlier, staying at a budget motel while scouting locations for her content. That morning, Sophia had started her hike before dawn, carrying only a small backpack with water, energy bars, and her phone equipped with a portable charger and tripod attachment. She wore designer hiking boots that had never touched dirt before this trip, paired with athletic wear chosen more for its photogenic qualities than any practical functionality. Grizzly bears are among North America's most powerful predators, with adult males weighing between 400 and 800 pounds and standing up to 10 feet tall on their hind legs. These massive omnivores possess incredible strength, capable of running 35 miles per hour and climbing trees with surprising agility. Grizzlies have an exceptional sense of smell that can detect food sources from miles away, and they're naturally curious about unusual sounds or movements in their territory. As Sophia rounded a bend in the trail near a rushing stream, she stopped abruptly at the sight that greeted her. Approximately 30 yards away, a massive grizzly bear stood in the shallow water, its dark brown fur glistening in the morning sunlight. Instead of backing away slowly, as park guidelines recommended, Sophia saw an unprecedented opportunity. Sophia quietly moved to a fallen log that provided the perfect elevated position for her shot. She extended her phone's selfie stick and activated the timer function, positioning herself so the massive bear would be visible in the background. The grizzly's head snapped up the moment Sophia's phone made the subtle beeping sound of the timer countdown. The bear's keen hearing had detected the unfamiliar electronic noise, and its powerful sense of smell immediately identified the presence of a human in its territory. The attack came with explosive suddenness. The 600-pound grizzly launched itself from the stream with incredible speed, its powerful legs propelling it across the rocky terrain in massive bounds. Sophia dropped her phone and attempted to run, but her designer hiking boots provided no traction on the loose rocks and pine needles covering the trail. The bear's enormous paw struck Sophia's chest with bone-crushing force, the impact driving the air from her lungs and cracking several ribs instantly. The grizzly's claws, each over 4 inches long, raked across her torso, tearing through her athletic wear and opening deep gashes that immediately began bleeding profusely. The massive bear's jaws clamped down on Sophia's shoulder, its powerful teeth puncturing through muscle and bone. The grizzly's bite force, exceeding 1,200 pounds per square inch, crushed her collarbone and severed major arteries in her neck and shoulder area. The bear shook Sophia violently, its massive head whipping back and forth with enough force to cause severe spinal injuries. The bear's powerful jaws worked systematically, crushing bones and tearing flesh as its predatory instincts took complete control. Within minutes, Sophia's struggles ceased as the massive bear's attack proved fatal. Park rangers discovered Sophia's remains the following afternoon when she failed to return to her rental car at the designated time. Her phone was found nearby, its screen cracked but still functional, containing the final selfie that had triggered the fatal encounter. The investigation revealed that Sophia had violated multiple park safety guidelines and ignored posted warnings about bear activity in the area. However, Sophia's tragic encounter wasn't an isolated incident. Just 2 states away, a seasoned outdoorsman would discover that decades of wilderness experience meant nothing when you stumble into a grizzly's feeding ground. It was October 3rd, 2019, and the vast wilderness of Yellowstone National Park was painted in brilliant autumn colors as 58-year-old Robert Henderson made his way along a remote hunting trail in the Thoroughfare region. The crisp Wyoming air carried the scent of falling leaves and pine needles, while golden aspens shimmered in the afternoon breeze. Robert, a retired construction foreman from Billings, Montana, had been bow hunting elk in this area for over 20 years and knew these mountains better than most park rangers. Robert had grown up in rural Montana, learning to hunt and fish from his father and grandfather before he could properly tie his shoes. His weathered hands and sun-damaged face told the story of a man who had spent most of his 58 years outdoors, working construction jobs during the week and disappearing into the wilderness every weekend. He had successfully harvested dozens of elk over the decades and prided himself on his ability to track wounded animals through the most challenging terrain. The experienced hunter had been following a blood trail for nearly 3 hours, tracking a bull elk he had wounded earlier that morning with a poorly placed arrow. Robert's ethical code demanded that he recover any animal he shot, regardless of how long it took or how difficult the terrain became. His persistence had led him deep into a remote valley where few hunters ventured, following droplets of blood across rocky slopes and through dense timber. That afternoon, Robert had been moving quietly through a thick stand of lodgepole pines when the metallic scent of fresh blood grew stronger. He knew he was close to finding his elk, but what he didn't realize was that he was approaching an active feeding site where a massive grizzly bear had claimed the carcass as its own. Grizzly bears are opportunistic scavengers that will aggressively defend any food source they discover, particularly large carcasses that can sustain them for days. When a bear claims a kill, it becomes extremely territorial and will attack any perceived threat to its meal. The combination of a fresh elk carcass and a surprised grizzly creates one of the most dangerous situations possible in bear country, as the animal's protective instincts override any natural fear of humans. Robert pushed through a wall of thick brush and emerged into a small clearing where his wounded elk lay motionless. The massive bull had finally succumbed to its injuries, but Robert's relief quickly turned to horror as he realized he was not alone. Less than 20 yards away, an enormous male grizzly bear was feeding on the elk's hindquarters, its massive head buried deep in the carcass. The bear's head snapped up immediately, its small eyes locking onto Robert's position while blood and tissue dripped from its powerful jaws. Robert had encountered black bears numerous times during his hunting career, but he had never been this close to a grizzly, especially one that was actively feeding. The massive predator stood nearly 4 feet tall at the shoulder even while on all fours, its dark brown fur bristling with aggression. Robert slowly reached for the bear spray attached to his belt, but his movement triggered the grizzly's defensive instincts. The bear rose up on its hind legs to assess the threat, standing nearly 9 feet tall and weighing over 700 pounds, as it swayed slightly from side to side, testing the air with its exceptional sense of smell. The grizzly dropped to all fours and charged without warning, covering the distance between them in 3 powerful bounds. Robert managed to discharge his bear spray, but the wind carried most of the deterrent away from the charging predator. The massive bear struck Robert with the force of a freight train, its enormous paw connecting with his chest and launching him backward into a fallen tree. The impact shattered several of Robert's ribs and drove the air from his lungs, leaving him gasping and unable to move as the 700-pound predator closed in for its assault. The grizzly's massive jaws clamped down on Robert's left arm, its powerful teeth crushing bone and tearing through muscle with devastating efficiency. The bear began shaking Robert violently, its massive head whipping back and forth with enough force to dislocate his shoulder and cause severe spinal trauma. Robert's hunting knife fell from his grip as the grizzly's claws raked across his torso, opening deep gashes that immediately began bleeding profusely. The grizzly's powerful bite moved to Robert's throat, its crushing jaw pressure severing major arteries and causing massive blood loss. The experienced hunter's decades of wilderness knowledge were useless against an animal possessing the strength of multiple men and the territorial fury of a predator defending its food source. Within minutes, Robert's struggle ceased as the grizzly's brutal attack proved fatal. The massive bear remained near the elk carcass for several more hours, alternating between feeding and guarding against additional threats to its valuable food source. Search and rescue teams found Robert's remains 3 days later, when he failed to return from his hunting trip. The investigation revealed that he had unknowingly approached an active bear feeding site, creating an unavoidable conflict with a territorial grizzly. The bear was tracked but left undisturbed, as it had been acting within normal defensive behavior patterns. Robert's death prompted enhanced education programs for hunters about the dangers of tracking wounded game in grizzly habitat. But even the most cautious outdoor enthusiasts weren't immune to fatal encounters with these apex predators. It was June 15, 2016, and the remote wilderness of Glacier National Park stretched endlessly across the Montana landscape as 67-year-old Margaret Thompson carefully arranged her camping gear at a backcountry site near Bowman Lake. The retired elementary school teacher from Minneapolis had been planning this solo camping trip for months, determined to fulfill a lifelong dream of experiencing the pristine wilderness that had captivated her imagination since childhood. Margaret had taught 3rd grade for 37 years, inspiring countless children with her passion for nature and outdoor education. Her classroom walls had been covered with photographs of national parks and wildlife, and she had spent decades saving money for the retirement adventure she had always promised herself. This trip to Glacier represented the beginning of her golden years, a chance to finally explore the places she had only seen in books and documentaries. The 67-year-old had arrived at the park 2 days earlier, spending time at the visitor center studying maps and attending ranger presentations about backcountry safety. She had purchased all the required permits and equipment, including bear-proof food containers and a whistle for making noise on the trail. Margaret's meticulous planning reflected her teaching background, where attention to detail and preparation had been essential for managing classrooms full of energetic children. That evening, Margaret had set up her tent in a designated camping area surrounded by towering pine trees and alpine meadows filled with wildflowers. The peaceful setting seemed perfect for her first night of solo wilderness camping, and she had spent the afternoon photographing the stunning scenery with her new digital camera. As darkness approached, Margaret prepared a simple dinner on her portable camp stove, enjoying the solitude and natural beauty that surrounded her remote campsite. Margaret's fatal mistake occurred when she decided to rinse her dinner dishes in the nearby stream rather than using the designated wash station located 50 yards from her tent. The retired teacher had read the park guidelines about proper food storage and cleanup procedures, but she underestimated the importance of these seemingly minor details. Her failure to properly dispose of food scraps in wash water would create an irresistible scent trail that would attract one of the area's most dangerous predators. Around midnight, Margaret was awakened by the sound of something large moving through her campsite. The rhythmic footsteps and heavy breathing suggested an animal much larger than the chipmunks and squirrels she had observed during the day. Margaret lay quietly in her sleeping bag, hoping the creature would lose interest and move on to other areas of the forest. The massive grizzly bear had been drawn to Margaret's campsite by the lingering sense of her dinner preparation and the improperly disposed food waste near the stream. The 500-pound female had cubs hidden nearby and was actively foraging to build up fat reserves for the approaching winter months. Her exceptional sense of smell had detected the food odors from over a mile away, and she had spent nearly an hour investigating the area around Margaret's tent. Margaret's decision to investigate the sounds outside her tent proved fatal. She quietly unzipped the tent entrance and peered outside, hoping to identify the source of the disturbance. The beam from her flashlight immediately illuminated the massive grizzly bear, which was standing less than 10 feet from her tent entrance. The bear's reaction was instantaneous and violent. Startled by the sudden bright light and the appearance of a human, the grizzly charged directly toward Margaret's tent with explosive speed. Margaret attempted to retreat into her tent, but the thin nylon fabric provided no protection against 500 pounds of muscle and claws. The grizzly's massive paw struck the tent with tremendous force, collapsing the structure and pinning Margaret beneath the twisted fabric and broken poles. The bear's powerful claws raked across Margaret's back and shoulders, tearing through her sleeping bag and opening deep gashes that immediately began bleeding profusely. The grizzly's jaws found Margaret's neck, its crushing bite force severing vital arteries and causing massive trauma to her cervical spine. The retired teacher's attempts to escape were futile against an animal possessing overwhelming physical advantages and territorial instincts that demanded the elimination of any perceived threat. The bear's assault continued with methodical brutality, its powerful limbs and jaws inflicting devastating injuries while Margaret's struggles grew progressively weaker. Within minutes, the grizzly's attack proved fatal, and the massive predator remained near the campsite for over an hour before disappearing back into the wilderness. Other campers discovered the scene the following morning when Margaret failed to appear at the designated check-in time. The investigation revealed that improper food waste disposal had attracted the grizzly to her campsite, creating an unavoidable conflict between human and predator. The bear was tracked but not destroyed, as it had been acting within normal foraging behavior patterns. Margaret's death prompted enhanced educational programs about backcountry camping safety and stricter enforcement of food storage regulations. But even experienced outdoor professionals sometimes find themselves in situations where knowledge and preparation weren't enough to prevent tragedy. It was September 8, 2018, and the rugged wilderness of the Bob Marshall Wilderness Area stretched across the Montana landscape under an overcast sky that threatened an early autumn snow. The remote backcountry was alive with the sounds of bugling elk and the rustle of aspen leaves turning golden in the crisp mountain air. Dr. James Mitchell, a 45-year-old wildlife biologist from Missoula, was conducting his annual research survey of grizzly bear populations in this pristine ecosystem. Dr. Mitchell had dedicated his career to studying large predators, earning his doctorate in wildlife biology from the University of Montana and spending over 15 years researching bear behavior and habitat requirements. His published research had contributed significantly to grizzly bear conservation efforts throughout the Northern Rockies, and he was widely respected among his peers for his expertise and dedication to protecting these magnificent predators. The 45-year-old scientist had been working alone in the wilderness for 6 days, collecting hair samples from bear rubs and documenting feeding sites as part of a comprehensive population study. His research required him to work in areas with high grizzly activity, using his extensive knowledge of bear behavior to minimize risks while gathering crucial scientific data. That morning, Dr. Mitchell had been investigating a series of bear rubs along a game trail when he discovered fresh grizzly tracks in the soft earth. The massive paw prints indicated an exceptionally large male, possibly weighing over 600 pounds based on the size and depth of the impressions. Dr. Mitchell began following the track pattern, carefully documenting the bear's movement through the forest, while maintaining what he believed was a safe distance. The massive grizzly had been feeding on a moose carcass hidden in a dense thicket of willows, completely concealed from Dr. Mitchell's view as he approached the area. The 650-pound male had claimed the carcass 2 days earlier and had been guarding it aggressively against other scavengers. His territorial instincts were heightened by the valuable food source, making him extremely dangerous to any perceived threat. Dr. Mitchell pushed through the wall of willows and emerged directly into the bear's feeding area, finding himself less than 15 feet from the massive predator. The grizzly's head snapped up from the moose carcass, its powerful jaws dripping with blood and tissue, while its small eyes assessed this unexpected intrusion. The scientist's extensive training kicked in immediately, and he began backing away slowly while speaking in calm, low tones. Dr. Mitchell reached for his bear spray while avoiding direct eye contact with the massive predator, following all the protocols he had taught to countless students and fellow researchers over the years. The grizzly's response was immediate and devastating. The massive bear exploded from his feeding position with terrifying speed, its powerful legs propelling 650 pounds of muscle and fury directly toward Dr. Mitchell's position. The scientist managed to fire his bear spray, but the thick willows deflected most of the deterrent away from the charging predator. The grizzly struck Dr. Mitchell with bone-crushing force, its enormous paw connecting with his chest and driving him backward into the dense brush. The impact shattered several ribs and punctured his left lung, causing immediate breathing difficulties as blood began filling his chest cavity. The bear's massive jaws clamped down on Dr. Mitchell's right shoulder, its powerful teeth crushing bone and tearing through muscle with devastating efficiency. The grizzly's bite force, exceeding 1,200 pounds per square inch, severed major arteries and caused massive blood loss that immediately began soaking into the forest floor. The massive predator then began shaking Dr. Mitchell violently, its massive head whipping back and forth with enough force to cause severe spinal trauma. The grizzly's claws raked across Dr. Mitchell's torso and legs, each swipe opening deep gashes that exposed underlying organs and caused additional blood loss. The bear's territorial fury drove it to continue the assault with methodical brutality, its powerful limbs pinning the scientist to the ground while its jaws worked to eliminate the perceived threat to its food source. Within minutes, Dr. Mitchell's struggles ceased as the grizzly's brutal attack proved fatal. Search and rescue teams found Dr. Mitchell's remains 4 days later when he failed to check in via satellite phone. The investigation revealed that he had unknowingly approached an active feeding site, creating an unavoidable conflict with a territorial grizzly defending its food source. The bear was tracked but left undisturbed, as wildlife officials determined it had been acting within normal defensive behavior patterns. Dr. Mitchell's death sent shockwaves through the scientific community and prompted enhanced safety protocols for researchers working in grizzly habitat. His family established a scholarship fund for wildlife biology students, ensuring his dedication to bear conservation would continue through future generations of scientists. Yet, even the most innocent outdoor activities could turn deadly when unsuspecting visitors encounter these apex predators in their natural habitat. In Alaska, a grandmother's peaceful berry-picking expedition would become a nightmare when she stumbled into a coastal brown bear's territory. It was August 12, 2017, and the vast wilderness of Katmai National Park stretched endlessly along the Alaskan landscape under the bright summer sun. The tundra was alive with the colors of late summer, as blueberry bushes heavy with fruit dotted the rolling hills, while salmon runs filled the nearby streams. 73-year-old Dorothy Williams had traveled from her home in Anchorage to spend a week at her daughter's remote cabin, fulfilling a long-time tradition of picking wild berries for the family's winter preserves. Dorothy had been making this annual pilgrimage for over 15 years, ever since her daughter Sarah had purchased the isolated property near Brooks Camp. The retired librarian cherished these peaceful weeks in the wilderness, where she could escape the noise and crowds of city life while gathering the wild blueberries that have become legendary among her friends and neighbors back home. The 73-year-old grandmother had raised 4 children as a single mother after her husband's death in a logging accident 30 years earlier. Her strength and resilience had carried her family through difficult times, and she had worked 2 jobs while earning her library science degree through night school. Dorothy's love of nature and quiet determination had inspired her children to pursue their own outdoor adventures, leading to Sarah's decision to build a life in the Alaskan wilderness. That morning, Dorothy had set out early with her berry-picking buckets and a thermos of coffee, planning to spend the day harvesting blueberries from a productive patch she had discovered the previous summer. The area was located approximately 2 miles from the cabin, accessible by a well-worn game trail that wound through stands of alder and willow. Dorothy had picked berries in this location many times without incident, and she felt completely comfortable navigating the familiar terrain. Coastal brown bears, also known as Kodiak bears, are among the largest bears in the world, with adult males weighing between 600 and 1,400 pounds. These massive predators are omnivores that rely heavily on seasonal food sources, including the same wild berries that attract human foragers. During late summer, bears enter a phase called hyperphagia, where they consume up to 20,000 calories per day to build fat reserves for winter hibernation. This intense feeding behavior makes them extremely territorial around productive food sources and highly aggressive toward any perceived competition. Dorothy had been picking berries for nearly 3 hours, filling 2 large buckets with the plump, sweet fruit while enjoying the peaceful solitude of the wilderness. The productive berry patch was located in a natural depression surrounded by thick brush, which provided excellent growing conditions for the blueberries, but also limited visibility in all directions. The massive coastal brown bear had been feeding in the same berry patch for several days, taking advantage of the concentrated food source to build crucial fat reserves. The 900-pound male had established this area as his territory, and was actively defending it against other bears and any potential competitors. His exceptional sense of smell had detected Dorothy's presence long before she became aware of the danger. Dorothy was bent over a particularly productive bush when she heard the sound of heavy breathing behind her. She straightened up slowly and turned around to find herself face to face with the largest bear she had ever seen. The massive predator stood less than 20 feet away, its enormous frame blocking her path back to the main trail. The coastal brown bear's reaction was immediate and violent. Perceiving Dorothy as a direct threat to his valuable food source, the massive predator charged with explosive speed. Dorothy dropped her berry buckets and attempted to run, but her 73-year-old legs were no match for an animal capable of running 35 miles per hour through dense brush. The bear's enormous paw struck Dorothy's back with bone-crushing force, driving her face first into the berry bushes while its razor-sharp claws raked across her spine and shoulders. The impact shattered several vertebrae and caused immediate paralysis in her lower body, leaving her unable to escape as the massive predator continued its assault. The grizzly's powerful jaws clamped down on Dorothy's neck, its crushing bite force severing vital arteries and causing massive blood loss. The elderly woman's attempts to call for help were silenced by the bear's devastating bite, which crushed her windpipe and caused severe trauma to her cervical spine. The massive bear's territorial fury drove it to continue the attack with methodical brutality, its powerful limbs and jaws inflicting devastating injuries, while Dorothy's struggles grew progressively weaker. The bear's size and strength made the outcome inevitable, and within minutes, the elderly grandmother's movement ceased as the brutal assault proved fatal. The bear remained in the berry patch for several more hours, continuing to feed while occasionally checking Dorothy's motionless form to ensure the threat had been eliminated. The massive predator's territorial instincts had been satisfied, and it gradually returned to its normal foraging behavior. Search teams found Dorothy's remains the following day when she failed to return to the cabin for dinner. The investigation revealed that she had unknowingly entered an active feeding area claimed by a territorial coastal brown bear, creating an unavoidable conflict over food resources. The massive bear was tracked but not destroyed, as it had been acting within normal territorial behavior patterns while defending its established feeding ground. Dorothy's death devastated her family and prompted enhanced safety education for berry pickers and other foragers in bear country. Her daughter Sarah started a wilderness safety foundation in her mother's memory, providing education and equipment to help prevent similar tragedies in Alaska's remote wilderness areas. Thanks for watching. We're just getting started. Click the next video for stories that'll show you why some wildlife encounters should never be attempted, no matter how many followers you're trying to impress.